Welcome to the Real Estate Real Success podcast, where we talk about key business successes and lessons learned along the way in the hopes of inspiring brokerage owners and managers to find new ways to grow their business. I'm Chiyoko Kikino. In this episode, we are going to talk about the importance and the process in developing a business plan for your brokerage and what brokerages can do to help set their agents up for success in the new year. I'm really excited to be joined by Max Carbone. He and his wife, Anna, are the owners of Century 21 Assurance in Kelowna, British Columbia. Thank you so much for being with us today, Max. I'm super excited. I love talking about strategic planning, and you are the perfect person to speak to.
Great. Thanks, Chiyoko. It's a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Great. And the Kelowna background looks wonderful. So we start off by giving our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, your career, and your journey into real estate.
Sure. So thanks, Chiyoko. So I did my MBA many years ago, graduating in 1983 in entrepreneurial studies in Toronto at York University. And I worked in commercial real estate for one of the major players in the 80s and the 90s. And during that time, I worked in industrial commercial investment sales, was one of the top producers in the company. And in the mid 90s, I transitioned and set up a strategic planning consulting practice called Teamworks, where for many years I worked with a variety of different companies and organizations, lots of them in real estate. I helped turn around one of Canada's largest real estate brokerages as their strategic advisor, but also worked with a variety of smaller scale commercial brokerages, but a variety of other companies too, companies like Nike, Molson's, Coca-Cola, TD Bank, and the like. And my role was really to be a facilitator to help them develop their business and strategic plans. I taught that at the MBA level and did a lot of work with a variety of different companies and organizations. 6 or 7 of my clients were some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. So I've had some really interesting opportunity to be in the room while the teams are doing their planning with a wide variety of cultures and organizations.
Well, and that's why you're the perfect person to speak to, because you are the expert when it comes to strategic planning and creating a business plan. So, as you mentioned, you have some experience in the real estate industry, but I know you and your wife, Anna, come from more of a business background because she has a business background. So what got you interested in opening a real estate brokerage?
Well, my wife and I had lived in Toronto for many, many years. 2 of our daughters had actually moved out west, and we had decided that we wanted to move to Kelowna at some point in time in the future. So we started looking for a business to acquire here in Kelowna. Anna, in her own background, as you mentioned, has a very successful background, both in sales and sales management in media. So she worked with companies like MTV, City TV, Bell Media, et cetera, both in sales and in sales team management. And she also worked with me at Teamworks for a couple of years, and we decided that we'd look for an exciting business to buy, one that we could be helping people, not just helping organizations. And in our search in terms of the business opportunities in Kelowna, we came across this brokerage, which was available and had a great base, had a good culture, and we just thought it would be a great adventure. We did a lot of work in real estate. Most of our wealth personally was through real estate, so we felt that it was a good fit for us, given some of my background in real estate and Anna's in sales and sales management.
Well, we're really glad you joined us because you bring a very great, fresh perspective to the table. In your opinion, what are some of the pros and cons of coming from a business background into, owning a brokerage versus a real estate background? Because a lot of, broker owners kind of work their way up, right? They're real estate agents, they might get their broker's license, be a managing broker, and then they go and own an agency, but a brokerage, but you come from the business background. So what do you think some of the pros and cons are?
Well, the pros would be that we've got a bit more of a different perspective. We've seen lots of different companies and organizations and different cultures, and that gives us a bit of different insight in terms of how to help manage, lead, and grow the business. We take a bit more of a managerial approach than a pure real estate sales perspective, probably a little more, not always, but a little more systematic in terms of, setting goals and targets and helping our people do that and putting in place, more management oriented systems. Most realtors who have been experienced in the sales and the sales management process, are typically, have a different time horizon and a different approach than more, professional managers. So we've had a lot of that experience, and that makes a bit of a difference. The environment is very active and very change oriented. So it's hard to be too systematic or bureaucratic in many ways, because that doesn't work in a real estate brokerage culture. The cons would be, we had limited BC experience, and BC is much more, I would say, administratively oriented than Ontario was, or is, and then most of the other provinces are. I mean, right now we've just instituted a new home buyers rescission period where there's a 3-day cooling off period for buyers. And, BC's always been a bit of a leader in terms of good or bad, in terms of putting in place rules for consumers and consumer protection. And there's a lot more administrative work. So I think, the biggest disadvantage in terms of that is, not knowing the local market and the local culture. Fortunately, when we acquired the brokerage, we had a really good, the previous owner and previous associate broker were really knowledgeable, and they really helped us until were able to get up to speed on the BC rules and regulations.
Well, knowing you and Anna and your lovely personalities and your passion for helping people, I think you fit in the culture of BC perfectly. So let's talk a little bit about your brokerage now, C21 Assurance, and the markets in which it operates in. We have listeners from all over Canada, even North America, possibly even the world, listening in. So explain to me what Kelowna is like. It's beautiful Kelowna, and the markets, a little bit about where your brokerage operates in, and a little bit of background on your leadership structure, because that's a little bit interesting as well.
Sure. So the area that we're in is really a jewel in Canada. We're in an area called the Okanagan Valley, which runs in between the Rocky Mountains and the coastal mountains here in BC. And we're kind of in a bit of a rain shadow in the Okanagan. So we've got a tremendous amount of sunshine in the summer, and the weather's, quite great. There's lots of lakes and mountains and hiking and biking and boating and golfing and so a bit of a recreational capital as well. A bit undiscovered, but it's getting more and more discovered all the time. That's one of the beauties of the area. It does have a milder winters than most of Canada, but not as mild as it does on the Vancouver coast side, but still pretty good. And for those of you who love to ski, there's great skiing and outdoor winter activities at our doorstep. So we get literally, hundreds of tens of meters of snow in the immediate areas to get our skiing in, but there's not much at all in the Kelowna area. So from the areas in terms of real estate that we are brokerage serve, we really work, primarily in the central Okanagan, which consists of Kelowna, includes Lake Country. To a certain degree, we do some work up in the Vernon area. And when we go south, it's Peachland, West Kelowna, Peachland, Summerland, and some work in Penticton as well. But the majority of the work that we do is, basically between Penticton and Vernon. Because that's really kind of the geographic trading area. It's about an hour's drive from Kelowna.
Great. And tell us a little bit about your leadership structure. I know you have a team of people that help you, execute the business plan we're going to talk about. But can you give us some background on, your wife's role? And I know you have some other people on your leadership team.
Yeah, so our leadership team now consists of really 5 people. There is myself and Anna, our new partner, Dean DeRosier. So Dean joined our brokerage about 7-8 years ago, came from another brokerage, had a very good, successful career, heavy lister, and was a member of the board here in the Okanagan. And Dean had a very successful background and knows the market really well. Dean's kind of our market knowledge expert. He does a lot of training and coaching for the new realtors in the BC provincial program. But in addition, he does that work with our brokerage as well. Shirley Prisbol is our managing broker. Shirley was with Century 21 Bachman in Winnipeg for many years and held very senior roles in the industry there, and transitioned here. Her son had moved here, and she, like many people from the prairies and other parts of Western Canada immigrate to Kelowna. So we're fortunate that she's been with us for just over 3 years and does an exceptional job from the managing broker side. So she's really more kind of the checklist queen. You know, she kind of keeps track of all the legal issues, the financial issues, does a lot of day-to-day interactions with the realtors to make sure that they're working on their day-to-day activities. Her in combination with Stefan Rill, who's our mentor. Stefan is I think a 13-time Centurion on the coast. He moved to Vernon to semi-retire, and fortunately we were able to bring him on board with us to help us coach our new realtors and really kind of be just a sage, experienced realtor who shares his thoughts and experience as to how to build good relationships, how to grow a farm area, what are good practices for a realtor over time. So Anna leads our marketing team, also leads our HR initiatives and activities, and supports the entire brokerage in terms of events and activities. And of course, she makes sure I don't do stupid things, by making sure I have, she's a full partner in the business and gets has really good business sense and strategic insight. So without her, we wouldn't really be doing as well as we could be. So our process, our team process, and my role is I do most of the kind of recruiting. I lead the Tuesday team meetings that we have, do a lot of the strategic planning work with the realtors individually, and obviously maintain the game plan for the business as well.
Well, you have a very robust leadership team, and as you say, that team works really well together in order to help you grow. So I'm going to talk about your growth in a minute. But before I do that, I just want to ask you, how do you differentiate your brokerage for other brokerages in the market? Because all the main players are in Kelowna. Kelowna is a big town. Let's call it a town. We could call it a city. But how do you differentiate your brokerage from everyone else?
Well, a couple of things. I think the excuse me, the first thing that we do is, we have a really strong collaborative culture. Our realtors and our staff are very supportive and helpful. We really do a tremendous amount to help our realtors be successful and be prosperous. One of the things that we find that makes a difference is our unique, we call it Elevate 21. It's our property marketing program that we do for all of our realtors. So in-house, we provide photography, Matterport, we produce floor plans, we create custom websites, we put the signs up, we take it down. We basically provide 90% of what a realtor's high-end property marketing package consists of. And that saves our realtors anywhere from a day to 2 days per listing. And what we do, and that gives them a lot more, it benefits our realtors quite a bit because it helps them either spend more time with clients or with things that they enjoy and giving them some free time. And it works out better for our brokerage. The brokerage has a better margin. The realtors actually save time and save money. So it's a win-win for the realtors. It is a lot more management work for us. We have to maintain a staff of, 4 full-time people and 4.5 full-time people and several contract photographers as well. So, we're managing a larger staff complement, but we find that it does give our realtors a significant advantage. We have realtors, virtually none of our realtors have assistants, and many of them are doing, significant 60, 70 listings per year, which they wouldn't be able to do at another brokerage, given the way that they're structured. So, but they still have their independence, their autonomy. We do have several teams here, but our teams aren't that kind of hierarchical teams where realtors are capitalizing on other team members. They're more like partnerships and alliances that seem to work better. So the model works really well. We do other things on the conveyancing side as well that help save our realtors time. So what we're constantly looking to do is to take things away from the realtors that are not value added. And that would be, we have couriers that we run around and get the documents so that our realtors don't have to do that work. And that, yes, there's a cost to us as the brokerage, but it frees up the realtors' time to be focusing on their important priorities, which are client relationship activities and doing transactions, not doing lesser value administrative work.
Well, I can imagine too that there's a lot of positiveness that comes out of putting together a program like that, because the brand and your brokerage looks consistently high quality out there in the marketplace, right? Because you're using like high quality photographers, you're doing virtual tours, the marketing materials look similar. And so I'm sure that that helps to elevate your brokerage within your community too as well.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, and we've seen this. For 2022, we were rated the #1 office in the Central Okanagan by Kelowna Capital News readers, and #3 by Kelowna Now, which are the two leading media outlets here in the Central Okanagan. We were also, fortunately, rated the #2 overall Century 21 office in Canada for the second consecutive time. And that, consistency, our realtors do twice the average productivity of the realtors in the Okanagan. We have a significant number of award winners, higher than the Century 21 average. And it's partly because, they have more time to spend with clients, and we coach them to help them build their business, not based on marketing and advertising dollars, but on client relationship activities, online social media, not big spending, but big customer touch activities.
Well, that's what the real estate business is all about, relationships. So that's great that you give your realtors a better opportunity to build those stronger relationships. So I want to still talk, congratulations of all your awards. We're always so proud of you. And that has shown you, it's almost like a recognition from the growth and everything you've done over the years since you've owned the brokerage. And I do want to talk a little bit about your growth. So before we start talking about business planning and what you're doing to make your agents successful. So I understand that when you took over the brokerage that you had about 61 agents, and then as of the end of November, sorry, I don't have any more current information as up to the end of December, maybe you do, but you have 101 agents. So that's a 66% increase in just less than 6 years. Of course, you've won all these awards. And in addition, a mid-year of 2022, you were the 20th largest office by unit. So again, congratulations to your team. Congratulations to all your realtors, because I know you have some great high performers and just a great culture there.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We're blessed. We really do have a really good collaborative, supportive culture. We have several of our realtors participate in some realtor peer-to-peer support groups within our own office, and we encourage that activity so that they get together, quarterly or monthly to just go over things and help one another. We've got an office where we've got a main meeting area. We call it Club 21, where we hold our broader team offices, but it's also an open area where we encourage our realtors who don't have offices to basically hang out and come and do their work there. And it's a good networking function. They use it for, they can also book it and use it for a variety of other personal business activities, whether it's business networking groups, seminars for different activities. We've had everything from funerals to weddings in there as well. So it's kind of a fun social space as well that really helps, encourage and develop the culture. So I think that's, and a big part of why people come to the Okanagan or live here is because of its quality of life. There's a great level of activities here for people who are active outdoor people, whether you like motorcycling or biking or skiing or hiking or golfing or going out in the lake, on the many lakes in the area. It's just a spectacular region. So that, helps in terms of building a culture. And we encourage it by doing a variety of social networking activities. We probably have something every month, ranging from, taking some of the colleagues golfing, a women's night, women's night out, a taco truck, where we have a taco truck, some wine and cheese, obviously get together. There's lots of wineries in the area. So we have a day on the lake where everyone comes out and hangs out at our place on the lake, and we have, barbecue and boating and socializing, and people come with their kids and the like. So, an ongoing variety of activities, and we're investing in more and more of these kinds of things because we find that really helps the realtors build an interconnected culture with one another and the staff as well. So, that's important to really kind of help build that robust, collaborative, team supportive culture.
Well, that's really been your key ingredient for growth. Not only do you provide, these extra services for your realtors, but you actually have created this environment for the realtors where they can collaborate with each other, learn best practices, feel supported, feel connected to each other, right? And I think that's great, and that's helped you grow. What attracts, so, of course, the people in your brokerage know that culture is there, know the services are there. What's attracting new agents to your brokerage? So when you have a new agent join you, what's attracting them to your brokerage?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of work. We do a lot of work on the website. We just got word from Benchmetrics today that we're the number one ranked Century 21 office this month in terms of our website exposure. So, Anna and the marketing team do a significant amount in conjunction with Benchmetrics to make sure all of our agents and the like get a lot of coverage online. Century 21's got a great brand. The new branding is very helpful. It attracts a lot of new realtors. Obviously, the last couple of years, there's been some significant growth in terms of the number of new realtors coming into the market. So we get a fair number of new realtors coming in. And one of the things that I do, and it's part of what the background that I did on the coaching side, is whenever there's a new realtor who expresses an interest in coming to into our brokerage, not only do we have some information on them about why Century 21 Kelowna, we've got 21 reasons to join our office, but in addition, I have them do a complimentary coaching assessment, which is a disc-based tool that helps us understand what their natural behavior is and what their motivators are. And this gives me a chance to really get into their brain or into their heads in terms of who they are and what they're about, understand what motivates them, what drives them, and more importantly, perhaps, how it can help them be successful and how that could differentiate us. Because, for example, the motivators analysis gives us a perspective on someone as to what drives them. So some people are driven by financial performance and economic results. Some people are driven more by aesthetics, the artistic, creative side of things. Some people are driven by altruistic activity. Some people are driven by theoretical, which is the desire to learn and teach. So depending on someone's motivators, it allows us to help them understand how they can best utilize that in combination with their interests. So for example, if someone has a high theoretical interest, right, where they like to learn and teach, then one of the things that we coach them to do is to do things like lunch and learns or whole seminars where they get to demonstrate their prowess and just take advantage of something that they're naturally interested in. If somebody's more driven by altruism, then we encourage them to participate in charitable events and activities where they can socialize and network and meet people who are, potentially doing donations and the like, who are buyers and sellers of homes. So that way they're doing what's important to them, kind of helps them energize them, get them out of bed, and do something important to themselves, but also really helps them connect with other people in those chosen activities. And we look to marry that with their personal interests as well. So we'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure, in terms of the agent planning work.
Yeah, absolutely. And and maybe just explain too, I know that you said it's a behavioral motivational kind of assessment. It's really generally it's personality profile. I've done it before. Yeah. I love it. Who doesn't like to take a personality profile? It's always good. You're always interested in yourself. So it's good from if I was someone that met with you, I'm a new agent or an agent coming to your business, I would love to take one and review it, of course, with you. But I think the benefit from your side is that you get to know that person. So then you can actually create a story that's relevant to that person, right? Versus just, talking about features and benefits, of your brokerage. Now you can really, customize that narrative to the person you're talking about.
And part of what I do during the recruiting, we've got for new recruits, we've got a very successful hit rate, I think. I don't know if we totally track it, but we don't lose many new realtors who come to our brokerage exploring the real estate as a career. And partly is because I get inside their heads in terms of who they are, what they want to do, what their career interests are. I start to do some of the, in essence, strategic planning with them individually that helps uncover what's important to them. Using the behavior assessment behavior profiling tool, it also is a chance to set up a secondary meeting. So I have a first meeting with them, and then I offer to have them do the assessment, which everyone, almost everyone takes advantage of. They get a copy of it, and it's a very detailed report. It's like a 50-page report, and I offer to debrief it with them, usually in person if I can encourage them to do that. They come back into the office. It's another chance to get face-to-face with them. I'll introduce them to the team members as well, so they'll meet Dean, Shirley, Anna, Stefan, some of our staff. And they then just feel more comfortable that we really are looking after their own personal interests and goals. And when you're new, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for training, support, guidance, mentorship, coaching, and a friendly, warm, collaborative environment of professionals. So that's what we delivered. It just gives us a chance to see them again and again and again.
Well, you know what, and that's just such a great strategy. And I seriously could talk about this one topic for some time, but let's move on because I really want to talk about strategic business planning. So before we start getting into like the process that your company goes through, why, in your opinion, is it important for real estate brokerages to have an annual business plan? Because I think everyone's intention is to have one, but I don't know if everyone necessarily has one.
Yeah, well, I think it's an overused adage, is that if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. There was one that I liked better, was by Dwight D. Eisenhower, the former U.S. general and president. And he said, plans are nothing, but planning is everything. And the process of the planning, where you have the interactive discussion by the various participants on the team, so that there's an agreement and buy-in and mutual kind of commitment to the goals, is the important part. The actual document that's produced isn't, it's valuable, yes, it's something you look at and you refer to, but it's the process of the discussion amongst the participants. And, fortunately, I've, facilitated, hundreds of these types of sessions and have seen the transformation that happens in a team when they all have a chance to be at the table and have those discussions and get their input in terms of the what the direction is of the business and how everyone can participate in seeing that happen. So that's really the magic. It's almost like the combinations of people's psyches or spirit in terms of alignment around their direction, and it just makes it more of a cohesive, collaborative performance, and that's what a leadership team's all about, is more of a team process than the knowledge that Shirley and Dean and Stefan and Anna have is significant, and that it really involves having their involvement and support. Really is what makes it happen. Shirley's away for a week on holidays and I'm pulling my hair out saying, oh my God, I didn't know how much she knows, right? But I do know and stuff. So, she still fortunately chips in once in a while from her holidays, but, just makes a significant contribution across the board. So it's really the kind of the common thinking around where we want to go.
Great. And I think the key word here is alignment, right? You have an alignment and a buy-in with your management team. So let's talk about now the process that your brokerage goes through in order to create your business plan.
Mm-hmm. So our process is pretty consistent. So I had developed this process for many years and worked with it. And what we use is an interactive computer-assisted process. Use an outlining tool that basically allows the team to write the plan together. I used to teach, writing business plans at the MBA level many years ago. And what we found was that, if you have a separate person who writes the plan and, does that in a vacuum, it's not nearly as effective. So what we do is we take a computer, hook it up to a screen, and have the team produce the document using their own words and capture it online interactively. So the team is actually, building the plan together and literally writing it together. In our case, because I've had a lot of experience doing this, I participate and facilitate. For other groups, it might be a good idea to have an independent, neutral third party be the facilitator and capture the notes. But there really is a psychological advantage to having it done on screen so that the people actually refer to the plan. They actually talk to the plan. It's funny, they talk to the screen and the like. And then it's their words, like they're actually writing, I capture, when I do it, I always capture the participants' wording. So, it's their plan. They're writing it collectively, and my job's to be the text editor. And even in our own brokerage, yeah, I participate, but in many cases, the majority of what's up there is everybody else's thinking and words and the like. And that's really powerful because it's the team writing the plan, and the ultimate way to get the buy-in is have the team write the plan. So, that's the process that we use. We typically, do it during the quiet time of the year. We just did it between, Christmas and New Year's. And the brokerage, ideally you'd want to do it typically normally in a company where you've got seasonality like ours in November, possibly early December, but we're also, inundated with social activities and there's still a lot of real estate activity happening in November, December. So, our process is we'll typically do that over the holidays when it's quieter. We've got some time to think and plan about what's up for the coming year. And then we would have typically a semi-annual or a quarterly. I review it quarterly, make sure we're on track. And if I find we're deviating, then we'll get together again. But usually we're pretty much on track. So we might have a semi-annual review for the team. And if we're moving along and everything's getting done according to plan, I actually don't call another meeting because, why hold extra meetings if you don't have to? So by doing it upfront and investing a fair amount of time in the upfront portion, we get the buy-in and commitment, and people kind of have it installed in their brains that, this is what we're going to be doing, and they actually tend to execute over the years. So that's been kind of my experience, not only with our team, but with others as well. And I think from a real estate brokerage perspective, it's really important to do planning because I think we all know that the value of planning for agents is important, but the planning for the brokerage, is supremely important because without having that kind of overall high-level game plan, the brokerage will wander and will go into different directions. It'll just start to take a life of its own, right? We all know, there's so many regulatory requirements and agent issues and staffing issues that we can get pulled left, right, and center. So without having a focus, it makes it more difficult, and having a focus does make sure it keeps us on track.
Well, and I think that a brokerage should lead by example, right? If they're asking their agents to come up with an annual business plan, they should have a business plan that they're sharing components with. So again, you're modeling what you want the behavior to be of your agents. So I think that's critical. So I did have one follow-up question on that. So when you get together, you write the plan together on the screen. Are you all in a boardroom, and then someone's at the computer, and then you're crafting it together? Right,
exactly. And then we'll print that out, distribute it to everyone on the team. And there are some accountabilities on the action plan, different champions for different activities. It is a team effort, but some people lead obviously different activities and initiatives. When we came here, we didn't do that much outbound recruiting of experienced realtors. Now that we've been here for some time, we're now just starting to do more of that, and the results are starting to show. So we are starting to get more experienced realtors transitioning over to our brokerage from other brokerages. So that's a good sign as well.
So what are the key, so you're crafting the business plan together. Let's talk about the business plan itself. What are some of the key components of a solid business plan?
Yeah, so typically from an organization's perspective, there's kind of a couple of components. One is the philosophical component, I'll call it. That's, your company purpose or mission, your core reason for being, whatever you want to call it. I prefer the word purpose. And another part of the kind of philosophical approach is, what are the values of the organization? What's the values, the code of behavior that the organization lives by? Then there's also, the big, hairy, audacious goal, which is kind of like the super goal. I think in a seminar a little while ago, there was a group that uses the WIG acronym. And that's really kind of like the big goal for the organization. So that's kind of the philosophical part. A second part is a bit more of the analytical part, is do some sort of an analysis both of the organization and the exterior world and market. So typically that consists of a SWOT analysis, the organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For the external activities, you do a pest analysis, political, what's going on politically, environmentally, socially, technologically, et cetera, so that you look at the external factors that are impacting the business, so that everyone has kind of a level set in terms of where the organization is at and where it's at relative to what's going on in the external world. And then the last part is the goals and the action plan. The goals typically tend to be, 1 or 2 year in nature. I don't tend to typically go out much further than 3 years, because then it gets a little too far out. But really having agreement around a pretty small number of specific goals. We've all heard the SMART acronym. What we do is we pick a defined time period. We pretend we use a technique called backcasting, where you imagine it's 2 years out in the future, and you have everyone define success. So what does success look like 2 years from today? And then we craft those. We do a bit of a brainstorming to have people generate the different topics and ideas, and then refine them as a group, and then put them into categories and prioritize them. So we've got a prioritized set of goals and objectives. Typically, you'd only want about 5 or 6 for an organization for the year or two, because any more than that gets too many to remember. Not enough resources to actually do them. In some cases, with some organizations, you can also then define your current day hurdles that are preventing you from addressing or reaching the goals. And then lastly, arguably the most important part is the action plan. So the action plan consists of 3 activities. One is determine what actions are required to achieve the goal. So drop those into the plan. Secondly, look at what actions might be required to address or negate the hurdles that may be preventing you from achieving the goals that you're looking for. And the third part is to actually define what you need to stop doing. Because in many cases, and this is what they don't do in government sessions, interestingly enough, but there's lots of things that creep into an organization that are becoming unnecessary, or that are, not effective use of resources or time. So what are the things that we can stop doing? So, that's an important point, is are there things that are in place that are no longer required, or that are inefficient? So, and having that identified, clearly identified, starts with a verb, complete, direct, engage, build, grow, etc. It's an action statement with a leader assigned to it, or a champion, and with possibly some other team members, and with some timeline. So, and that action plan tends to be really the group to-do list of activities. So the value of that is that everyone knows who's doing what, who's in charge of what activity, and that who's accountable for it, and who's taking responsibility for it.
Well, and it's as you said, it's like, what are you going to stop doing? Because I think we're all like, okay, we're going to do all the things we did in 2022, plus we're going to do a whole bunch of new things. And then you find out you can't do anything very well. So I think that's critical in building the business plan. To tell me a little bit about, I know that you're getting your leadership team involved in the business planning process. Do you get anybody else involved in this process?
Well, we have a group called, one of the things we initiated a few years ago was a group called the Realtor Advisory Group. And so that initially was a smaller group. It was about 5 or 6 of our more experienced realtors. We've opened it up to about 10% of the population of the realtor group. And they're kind of nominated and elected by themselves, by the realtors. And what we do with them is we meet with them 3, sometimes 4 times a year. And what we do with them is they're not involved directly in the strategic planning process, but we get them involved in key issues that impact the realtors. We get their input in terms of what's working, what needs improvement. If we have some initiatives that we think we'd like to explore or launch, we run it past them. We vet new ideas through with them. So they're obviously a major stakeholder in the brokerage. We've considered having, one of them involved in the strategic planning process. We might do that in the future. The challenge is that, they really are, our customers in many cases. And so you don't typically have a customer involved in a strategic planning process. And it's, as you know, the relationship with realtors is very different. Yeah. They're kind of in-house and out of house. So it's very different than most other businesses and activities. So having them involved in that type of activity is very valuable. So, and that helps from a couple of perspectives. One is obviously helps us get good information. Many of those groups, we also encourage our other realtors to reach out to people on the Realtor Advisory Group to address any questions or concerns or issues that have that they may not feel comfortable bringing to us directly. So there is a conduit for issues or concerns or opportunities perhaps as well. And we have had lots of people bring, both issues and opportunities through the Realtor Advisor Group. So that's a really cool venue. And we usually do something fun. We go to a vineyard, we go to, we book a room at the back of a restaurant and, have some fun and, have, something to eat and a few drinks. And, there is an agenda and it's, very friendly, collaborative discussion. It encourages communication, encourages retention with the realtors. It gets them involved in knowing that they do have a voice within the brokerage. And so it really does help create that kind of buy-in and commitment to a shared successful outcome.
Well, I think that's a really, really great idea, because again, it supports your culture, right? It's a collaborative culture. So that's process supports your culture. So you talked about the components of a solid business plan. When I'm listening to you, I've done many, many business plans myself, but I think if someone hasn't done a business plan before, they're thinking, oh my gosh, this seems like it's going to take months to put together. So what tips would you give brokerages if they don't have like a formal business plan, but want to create one? What tips would you give them?
Well, I think the first tip is it's not rocket science. It's something that can be, pretty fun. It's around, what's important to you, what's important to your business, what's important to your realtors and your staff. It doesn't have to be and ours is not long. I mean, usually a business plan that you produce for investment for a venture capitalist is a lengthy, detailed document. The strategic planning business plan is a lot shorter. I mean, it's going to be 2 to 3 pages in length. It doesn't have to be that detailed in terms of the effort and the content. So it's not a huge document. As a matter of fact, the longer it is, the less effective it tends to be. So, think of it as, kind of the highlights of what you believe in, what's going on in the world and both in your business and outside, where you want to go and what you need to do to get there. And you could, I've written them sometimes as simply as that, like use plain English rather than, goals and, vision statements and stuff. But, that's kind of a nice way to do it too. You can do it as complex, but I think simpler is better. And, it can be done in many cases. It's obviously, a lot of brokerage are smaller leadership team. There's 2 or 3 people in the team. It's maybe you get away and make it a fun event, go on and do an offsite, over the holidays for 2 or 3 days. It might be a fun way and spend 3 or 4 hours each day, filling in the blanks as to where you want to go. Make it a fun event or activity if you can do that, right? Especially, a lot of brokerages are run by couples, and then that would be a good way to do it. The larger brokerages that have larger teams and the like, similarly, you can break away, do it offsite, do it at a hotel or a restaurant, and get away and do it in a bit more structured approach. But the process is, it's the planning that's important, not the plan itself. So that's kind of my, if I were to kind of share anything, that would be kind of the best value for the group.
Well, that's great advice. Okay, so let's now move along to talking about how you're supporting your agents to better prepare for the new year. So what's important, tell us why it's important for an agent to have a business plan, and then take us through the process of how you help your agents develop a plan.
Sure. So of course, no different than a business, the value of an agent having a business plan is focus on what's important to them, both in their career and in their lives. Agents are solopreneurs for the most part. Most entrepreneurs, their business is intertwined with their life, and the business has to meet their personal and life goals. So it's extremely important. One of the first things they taught us, and I was in the first entrepreneurial studies program in North America at York University, and the first thing that they taught us was, you need a plan. No matter what, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to have a game plan. And the importance of doing that on a regular basis really significantly increases the likelihood that you'll have a successful result. In terms of how we approach it with our agents, we've tried different things over the years. We have tried some group sessions. We found that that's not as effective, primarily because agents don't tend to do the work then. It sounds funny, but we get the best results doing it on a one-on-one basis. So what we do with all of our new agents, it's part of the onboarding process. So we review. I lead the activity, and then Dean participates in it as well. So what we do with all of them is we do the behavior assessment. I sit down with them, review their background, and I spend probably 4 to 6 hours over 2 or 3 meetings with all of our new agents, helping them come up with their personal life philosophy, their personal life purpose, their vision for the future, what their values are, clearly define where they want to go with their career, talk about what interests them, what their personal interests and motivators are. So, for example, here we have, one of our realtors, for example, loves to cycle. And, it was really important for him to do that. And I said, well, that's great. Why don't you join 3 cycling clubs and come up with, a real estate tour for each of the cycling clubs? And he said, oh, really? Is that a good idea? And I said, yeah, that's great. Do what you love, get to meet lots of people, do a cycling tour. And now a bunch of his business comes from his cycling buddies.
Great idea. Great idea.
And the like. So what we always look at doing is trying to find a way to tie someone's personal interests and motivations into a successful business development strategy, especially for new realtors, because the challenge for new realtors is not actually executing the transaction. We've got lots of support between the 3 brokers and mentors and staff that we have on our team. But the real advantage is getting them going from the new business development perspective. So I focus a lot of my time doing that. Then once they have their plan done, they work with Dean, who gets involved a bit more in the execution of the strategy. So he'll say, well, if you want to achieve those kinds of financial numbers, and that's your farm area, this is your target, how many meaningful conversations do you have to have about real estate on a daily basis? And we looked, and it actually integrates really well with Moxie work. So, we're really kind of building on that more and more as we go, where we get our realtors to determine how many interactions they need to have on a daily basis. And it typically works out to be, 5 to 10, depending on the volume and activity that you want to do. So if a realtor wants to do $300,000-$400,000 a year here in our market, it really means they have to have about 10 interactive discussions with people on a daily basis, a total of 10 a day. Now, that could be, 70 in 1 week, all at one event or one activity, but having meaningful conversations about real estate. So taking it from the high level kind of theoretical, kind of life dream into the, well, what do I need to do on a day-to-day practical perspective? And then with new realtors, how we support them is I do the work, support the work realtors in the commercial side, and Dean and Shirley and Stefan do that on the residential side. And that's where we support them through their transactions. So we do have a ongoing weekly training and development program for new realtors where they attend that. And then as they're working through their transactions, they can reach out at any time to, their appropriate, colleagues to help support them in their transactions. So it works from kind of a high level game plan, kind of philosophy, down to the nuts and bolts of what they need to do kind of on a weekly or daily basis. With new realtors, I'll usually meet with them to start every 3 or 6 months till they get the ball rolling. And like, so that is kind of the new, and then once they get rolling, it's generally annually. What we tend to find happen is that a lot of the experienced realtors don't want much input on the strategic planning. I mean, we've sent out some templates, we've done some sessions and stuff, but experienced realtors kind of tend to get it, or they get it now from third-party coaches, right? Which, we all know are out there and stuff. But, to get them started and get them going, we provide much of that. We do have some of our experienced realtors who I meet with on an annual basis. Tends to skew towards the younger ones, but that, are very successful, multiple centurions, and they just want to sit down and have a chat and figure out, okay, what's next? Here's where I'm getting stuck. Here's where I need some help and advice. And even though they can check in on a regular basis, it's just good to do that on an ongoing basis. But what we do find is that the experienced realtors, the more experienced ones, they've already developed their systems or their process or their planning activity. And so they need us less and less as they evolve. That being said, sometimes when they're in difficulty, if they've had a bad year, we reach out to them and check in and offer to do that again, to do a planning session with them again. And some of us take us up on it, which is great. But not all of them do. And, they're independent contractors, so you can't really force them to do it. In a corporate setting, yeah, you can kind of force people to do it a bit more. But, in our culture and environment and industry, it's not so easy. So it's really more by common, common collaborative approach that it gets done. So, that's always been our approach, right? We don't force anything on anyone and say, hey, it's here. If you like it, we'd love to help you. We remind people on a regular basis, probably once a month or once every 2 months at our team meetings, say, hey, if any of you need any help and any need advice, you're always there. We'd love to help you do a plan if you're stuck or if you're having problems or you just need a sounding board as to where you need to go. And that plan sometimes extends outside of real estate. So there's been lots of realtors who've come to me and, wanted to do something else, and I've helped them actually do that plan. And even though, we knew that it would take them away from real estate, if their heart wasn't in real estate anymore, then it's not fair to them. It's not the right thing for them to encourage them to stay in the business. And usually what happens is then they tell their friends and we get a new realtor from, them saying, hey, you know what, they really did what was really in our best interest. And, I wish, that, others would do that for me as well. So it tends to help us on the recruiting side, because if we sincerely do what's in their best interests, then they tell their friends and their family, and it turns into new relationships for us too.
So basically even though you are doing business planning on an annual basis, so you're doing it for your brokerage in December, as you said, between Christmas and New Year's, you're probably sitting down with your experienced agents, December, January time frame, if they want some advice or some fresh input in their, in their process and their plan. But with the new agents, you're doing them throughout the year, right? Whenever they come on board, you're putting together a plan for them.
Right, it's consistent, right? It's right as soon as they onboard. The first step is we kind of introduce them. We have an onboarding program or activities that encourages them to, meet with the different staff members. Once they've kind of got their feet in the pool, shall we say, then once they've been with us for a month or so, then I'll spend that time to really do the planning so that they can really get going, get their practice going, get focused on, how they can build their practice over time. And it falls in a few pretty consistent areas. One is, build your database, build your sphere, consider a farm area, look at your personal areas of interest where you can build established relationships, perhaps do things like join or build a networking referral group, determine what kind of events you want to have in your farm or activity where you're doing some sort of social outreach activity and the like, and really just kind of help them flesh out what makes sense and help them understand that the job in the business development side is to establish and build relationships with people who like, trust, and respect you. And then that eventually turns into business. Help them understand that it's a relatively long sales cycle, that it doesn't happen overnight. It's a tortoise, not a hare race. The tortoise wins in real estate. A little bit of the hare helps at first, but you really want to kind of build that systematic, a bit more disciplined approach. And you want to help them do it in a way that's, that steers away from spending all kinds of money on, websites and marketing and advertising and stuff, where they just usually, cost you a bunch of money. It doesn't generate any business for them. Because that's one of the things that, I see, as soon as a realtor gets licensed, they get inundated by people offering, oh, get this great new website, and do all your lead generation and like, and, it's a big investment, start advertising and television and radio and TV and stuff. And, the return on that is branding, not direct sales. And they're in the direct sales business to start. So, letting them know that you need to have, a nice website that, and the Century 21's more than sufficient. And like, but they don't need to be investing a fortune down the road in year 2 or 3, once they get going. If they want to have their own independent realtor site, it's a good idea. It increases their exposure and brand awareness level. But at the same time, the majority of our realtors, I think only about maybe a third, 20% maybe have their own independent website. The vast majority of ours just use the Century 21 website in the system.
Well, we provide a robust, customizable website. They really don't have to have their own independent website. And so we provide a turnkey solution for agents, right? So we provide them everything they need in order to be successful in their careers. So we are, again, I could talk about this for hours, but we are running out of time. So I have two more questions for you. First one is, what tips would you give brokerages if they want to better support their agents in helping them prepare for the new year ahead?
Well, I think, the one biggest one is, and I think most of our brokers do this, but is, to sincerely look at what is in the realtor's best interest. Really treating them more like almost like a sibling. Like our realtors are kind of family members in many regards, right? And every family has unique personalities, like, of course. But I think in general, our approach is to sincerely try to do what's in the realtor's best interests. Yes, we do charge them fees and charge them services for services and like, but at the same time, focusing first and foremost on, what's in their best interest. The second one is, it can be a bit tougher, is then to hold them accountable to when they have, when they want to take shortcuts, or, they're facing challenges and stuff. And, sometimes, when it's a coaching approach, is sometimes you coach as being, the nice person, and sometimes it's being a bit of the hard ass. So sometimes, is to say, hey, you know what, I see you're not putting in the time, effort, and energy that you wanted to achieve your goals. So, you have to call them on it. Now, it's hard with a big roster to be able to keep track of everyone. I mean, we have around 100 realtors. It's hard to keep track of everyone. But, in terms of in general, it's like if you see someone falling short of where they have the potential to be, then holding them accountable to that and just letting them know, not in a negative, critical sense, but say, hey, is that really where you want to be? It didn't sound like when we were doing your planning that this is your desired outcome. So it's the combination of the kind of the positive and a bit of the negative reinforcement to help them achieve their own self-determined goals.
Yeah, well, as you say, positive reinforcement, but holding people accountable, right, to their opportunities in front of them and to the level of achievement that they could reach, really, at the end of the day. So my last question, I ask everybody this that is on our podcast. What's the biggest challenge you've ever faced, whether it's in your career or in your life, that ended up being a blessing in disguise?
The biggest challenge in career.
Does one come to mind?
Well, I think, if I were to think of the career here at Century 21, I mean, we lost a couple of higher performers, right? Good realtors, that were doing good volume, but they were really a couple of things. They were really high maintenance, like they required a tremendous amount of support. They weren't really the collaborative, supportive, cultural types. So although they were, they did big numbers and they did, big volume, they weren't really aligned with the culture. They were all about me and not about us. And obviously, most realtors are working as independent realtors and doing their own thing. But what we found was that when they left, it actually made the culture better and had more room for newer realtors and experienced realtors. And it was a better staff and better culture. So that was one thing I would think that made a big difference, and stuff. So although it felt like a loss, and when we really looked at it, it says, it was a gain. It allowed us to provide more energy and effort towards our other, mid-level producers and help them kind of elevate their activities. So, that really kind of helped improve the overall performance. So, and it made room for some newer realtors as well. So, having that, time, effort, and energy to dedicate to a broader team, there's a old analogy. Would you rather have one superstar, and 22, C players, or would you rather have, 22 B players? Well, I'd much rather have 22 B players than one superstar and, 21 C players. So, that's the idea is if we can have, a good roster of, equally higher performing realtors, that's kind of the best environment for us. And like, so that's kind of, kind of the positive and the negative of that. Yeah.
And if people want to reach out to you, again, you have, I guess you can actually help real estate brokerages create a business plan. So you're there to help people, right? You still have your consulting company, as long as it's not in the Okanagan.
Yeah. Yeah. If people are interested, I turn down most of the business now. I refer it to some other people. I'm thinking down the road as, if I get more time, it'd be kind of fun to help do this work for the brokerages. and like, I'm happy to spend, if someone has a few questions, want to pick my brain to, help them determine what the right agenda format is for them. They can reach out to me, obviously max.carbone@century21.ca, or they can call me at 250-864-2529 anytime, and I'd be happy to chat with them and share some thoughts as to what can help them. I have toyed around with the idea of helping the brokerages. It is pretty time intensive. Like for me to do that, it's kind of it's kind of a 4 or 5 day, activity. And so I do get requests on an ongoing basis. I farm out the work that I do still get, that comes into me, from my own practice to people who I can refer to in other areas. But for the real estate business, I can help pretty quickly, help the broker owners figure out what's best for them, and happy to kind of share my thoughts.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions, listeners out there, and you have Max's ear for about 5 or 10 minutes or so. So max.carbone@Century21 Canada. Max, thank you so much for joining us today. You are the expert in this area when it comes to the C21 network. So thank you so much for putting the time and giving us all of your tips and your thought process with regards to supporting agents and making sure your brokerage is set up for success for the new year. So we really appreciate your time.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Choco, for putting this and all of the webinars together. It's a great value to everyone on the team. Thanks.
Great. You're either listening to this podcast live, or you're listening to this recording on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or you went to the century21franchise.ca website. Century 21 is one of the world's largest residential real estate companies in the world, with presence in 86 countries. Here in Canada, we are 11,000 plus strong, and we're looking to align ourselves with like-minded individuals who share the same vision to what the future of brokerages look like. If you're interested in growth opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me or my colleague, Gary Zalepa. Our contact information can be found on the century21franchise.ca website. Or of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook and we can set up a chat. Anyways, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks again, Matt.